So I knew that Battlefield 5 was in a precarious position due to a combination of mixed to negative reception against this alternate take on World War II and its awkward release date, but I didn't know just how bad things were until a recent report. So for those who missed it, a few days ago on August 14th, 2018, Sarah E. Needleman from the Wall Street Journal posted the following tweet reporting disappointing pre-order numbers for Battlefield 5, especially compared to the competition, information that she got from analysts from firm Cowen. The relevant portion of the article reads as follows. Earlier this month, Cowen said pre-order sales of Battlefield 5 have been weak. It is due for release in between Activision Blizzard's next Call of Duty game and Take-Two Interactive Software's Red Dead Redemption sequel, both of which Cowen says are showing greater pre-order demand. Cowen says Battlefield could suffer the same fate as EA's Titanfall 2, which was released in between two major game launches in 2016 and sold poorly. Yeah, release schedule-wise, Battlefield 5 is actually in a near identical position to Titanfall 2. You may recall that EA made the baffling decision to launch Titanfall 2 sandwiched between Battlefield 1 and Infinite Warfare, setting it up for failure. And with Battlefield 5, EA is launching the game sandwiched between Black Ops 4 and Red Dead Redemption 2, and there is no denying that being the middle child in this scenario is having tangible adverse effects on its pre-order performance. Now, with how vaguely this information was conveyed, I figure that while Battlefield 5 may not sell as well as its October competitors, it would still sell enough copies to be considered a relative success. Unlike Titanfall, which was a lesser-known franchise, Battlefield is far more established and well-known, so my assumption was that it would still perform adequately. But a recent report by news outlet CNBC suggests that the latest entry could be faced with far worse sales than anyone could have anticipated. The following information once again comes from analysts from Cowen, more specifically analyst Doug Kreutz, who recently sent out a note to clients that CNBC acquired and relayed through their latest article. Doug's note doesn't seem to beat around the bush, starting with this very blunt statement. EA's Battlefield 5 currently appears to potentially be headed for serious disappointment. The article then added, quote, "It is lagging far behind Call of Duty, Red Dead Redemption 2, and Assassin's Creed," he added, and by slightly more than it was 2 weeks ago in the case of the first two. Doug also said the following in his note, "If we had to pick one game to be a casualty of the crowded October window, this would clearly be it." Now, by just how much exactly is Battlefield 5 lagging behind the competition? Well, according to Doug, pre-orders for Battlefield 5 are tracking more than 85% behind Black Ops 4, which the article notes is substantially worse than previous instances, noting how Battlefield 3 and 4 lagged behind Call of Duty by 20 to 40%, whereas Battlefield 1 actually pulled ahead. The article also directly quoted Doug, who added this, "This is very far off the tracking levels of previous Battlefield titles in 2011, 2013, and 2016. With a release date directly in between Call of Duty and Red Dead Redemption, we worry that Battlefield 5 could be headed for a similar fate as 2016's Titanfall 2, which got squeezed out by its launch date directly between Battlefield 1 and Call of Duty Infinite Warfare." Apparently, Battlefield 5 was estimated to sell between 13 to 14 million units in its entire lifespan, but in light of this new information, it is believed that these sales figures are no longer achievable or realistic. Doug's report finally concluded with a bleak, "This suggests a meaningful risk factor to EA's financial year 19 guidance." Okay, so I think it's fair to say at this point that perhaps the mixed reaction surrounding Battlefield 5's divisive take on World War II and EA's terrible response to all that has had more of an adverse effect on the game's prospects than initially anticipated. Don't get me wrong, I had no doubts in my mind that the controversy surrounding EA's outlandish take on the World War II setting had a significant effect on weak pre-order numbers, but I figure that Battlefield 5 lagging behind had in larger part to do with launch timing. But now that we know the game has fallen behind by a whopping 85% from Black Ops 4, I am fairly convinced now that the controversy has had just as much of a hit in pre-order numbers as the crowded nature of October has. Whereas before I attributed, say, 70% of lost sales to timing and 30% to controversy and poor marketing, now I'm thinking we're dealing with a 50-50 ratio here, hell, maybe even more in favor of controversy and bad marketing, where at the very least, both factors combined definitely seem to have caused an explosive chemical reaction that's exponentially made matters worse for this game. There is nothing scientific about my ratios, mind you. All I'm trying to say is that there is no way a discrepancy of 85% just comes from poor timing. Poor timing might be a huge detriment to a still establishing franchise like Titanfall, but Battlefield is big league enough that even with poor timing, it wouldn't lag by a margin that big if it had garnered generally positive reception. But as we all know, negativity surrounding Battlefield 5 is overwhelming in certain segments, in no small part due to EA's god-awful marketing campaign for this game. Regardless of whether you are on the side of being able to accept Battlefield 5's alternate take of World War II, or on the side of perceiving the game's visual elements like the inclusion of female British soldiers with prosthetic arms wielding spiked cricket bats running into the front lines, male British soldiers carrying katanas, and the whimsical Michael Bay-like aesthetics portrayed in the initial trailer as too absurd for your tastes, neither of which have to be taken as politically wrong opinions, I might add. Regardless of which side you lean more towards, I think one thing we can all at least agree on is that it was ultimately EA's utterly shit job at marketing Battlefield 5 that sunk this ship. From the strange and boring reveal event with Trevor Noah that mostly offered vague details about the game, the short-lived, largely uninformative showcase of Battlefield 5 during EA's garbage of an E3 2018 press conference, to things like Patrick Soderlund's fatal mistake of generalizing anyone who didn't like the way women are included or portrayed in Battlefield 5 as uneducated, and going on record to say that these so-called uneducated people should either accept it or don't buy the game. EA may have taken their shenanigans a few steps too far, which is the last thing you want to do when you're competing neck to neck with the likes of Black Ops 4 and Red Dead Redemption 2. Add on top of all that the general aura of distrust and stigma surrounding EA after all the bullshit they've pulled in the last 2 years, i.e. Mass Effect Andromeda's disastrous launch, Star Wars Battlefront 2's pay-to-win loot boxes, the shit job that was Need for Speed Payback, all the moronic justifications they've given for their recent transgressions, empty reassurances that they've changed or that they have developed a moral compass, so on and so forth. Add on top all the bad will they've built up over a long period of time, and well, you've got what can only be described as the perfect shitstorm. Now, do keep in mind that pre-order numbers are never definite indication of a game's lifetime sales performance. I've seen plenty of titles make insane comebacks, but at the same time, the issues that so many have against Battlefield 5 seem far too deeply ingrained in this case. All the controversy surrounding this game has less to do with how it functions. In fact, many seem to agree that the game at the very least plays just fine, and more to do with what it is at its core. Lots of people simply don't like this portrayal of World War II, and that isn't something you can just patch out. It's kind of like how Mass Effect Andromeda was an unfixable mess, not necessarily because of the facial animations and the technical mishaps, but because of the piss-poor writing and dialogue that was too deeply integrated with the game's core identity. Nothing short of an overhaul was going to save that game, an investment EA didn't deem worth the time and resources. And I think nothing short of an overhaul will change a large portion of Battlefield fans' outlook on 5. That's not to say it's impossible that the final product will be a solid enough package that naysayers will eventually be able to move past some of the immersion-breaking elements and give this game a chance, but analysts at Cohen do not seem very optimistic. You don't use words like serious disappointment, declare something as a casualty, or suggest something's tracking very far off unless it's expected that it will drastically fall short of performance. It isn't just a matter of the game tracking a little worse than usual, it's a matter of tracking far worse than even 3 of previous Battlefield releases from 2011, 2013, and 2016. So yeah, about how you encouraged people to not buy your game, Patrick Soderlund, it looks like your message was very clearly heard. Like, very clearly. Hope it was worth it. It looks like people got finally fed up of EA's bullshit and are taking a stand by speaking with their wallets, the only language that EA comprehends. And this predicament was only amplified by how the release schedule for Battlefield 5 puts it in direct competition with something like Red Dead Redemption 2, which will no doubt be October's bestseller as what I think is safe to say the far more appealing title of the trifecta of major releases that month. These are just one man's perspective on the matter anyway. I'd love to hear what your take is on Battlefield 5's abysmal pre-order sales performance in the comments below. With that, I would like to end this news update. Thank you for tuning in. If you enjoy my content and would like to support this channel directly, consider donating on Patreon. And to be further updated on all things gaming news, reviews, and discussions, stay tuned right here on Yong Yeah. I'll see you guys next time. Yong out.